Hello, everybody. I'm Phil Brandt, President and CEO of AIM Employers Association, and welcome to This Week at Work.
Welcome to This Week at Work, the only show to pack workplace news, practical HR solutions, and timely insights into every 30-minute episode. From the latest rulings in the courtroom to the strategies unfolding in the boardroom, and from real conversations taking place on the front lines to spotlighting what similar companies are doing about the challenges they face. This Week at Work brings you the conversations that matter most to HR professionals and business leaders like you. Brought to you by AIM Employers Association and Ogletree Deacons, live every Thursday morning. This is your opportunity to connect with their experts and ask your burning questions. So what's keeping you up at night? Let's face it together now on This Week at Work.
Good morning. Welcome back, everyone. Good morning, Bert. How are you today?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well today, Phil. How about you?
I'm great. I'm a little excited this morning. We have a wonderful guest with us, John O'Leary, and he has an incredible story to tell. And it's not every day that we are able to bring someone on that has such an influential story. And I've grown up with this story. I know you have as well, and many of our listeners are going to be very inspired by the story he has to tell. And before we introduce John, I do want to just say you and I also have a very special event tomorrow that we're hosting with our partner there, Nick at Feature Group. Good morning, Nick.
Good morning, fellas. Yeah, well, I'm excited about
ready
it.
For us tomorrow?
Yeah, you guys are going to come over and see us for once.
Yeah, we are. So let's just tell the audience what we have planned. So tomorrow we have the future of DE&I, a paradigm shift. And it's going to be a really good discussion. Of course, Bert and I are going to be a part of that. And many of our listeners who have participated with AIM are aware and know of Fred Falker. He's one of my local heroes in this space. He never disappoints, and he will be live also with us. And Bert, I think you have a special guest as well joining us from your firm.
Yeah, I do. So Luther Wright from my Nashville office is going to be coming in for the program as well. Our listeners and viewers might remember him. He joined us a couple years back. We had an honest conversation about race in the workplace, and he's a member of Ogletree Deacons Diversity and Inclusion Practice Group, and he regularly offers guidance on diversity-related matters in the workplace.
Yeah, no, Luther scored really well, and I know his episode got lots of attention, as did Fred. So, Bert, you and I will not have to do the heavy listening, and we'll actually have some real good talent with us tomorrow, just like we do today. Let's get to well, first, here's how you can find out about tomorrow's event. Go to the AIM website. There'll be a link there. You can copy on that. This is a free complimentary program shared and brought to you by Bert and I. We hope you join us. I know there are several hundred people already signed up for it, and then we'll make it available after the fact as well. But let's get on with today's guest, John O'Leary. John, good morning. Welcome to This Week at Work. How are you today?
Bill, better now that I got technology to actually work for you and Bert. So I'm thrilled to see your face and thrilled to be on your show.
Great. Thank you. We're so excited to have you. Our conference, John, is pacing faster than it has in any recent years. And I will tell you, for the last 13 years, this conference is sold out. But we are, with the announcement that you are our keynote speaker on May 8th, and that's at the Westport Plaza Sheraton Chalet. It's already tracking at a pace faster than we've seen in any recent year. So you definitely are getting the attention of our local community, but many people still are not aware of your story. Can you just kind of give us a background, John, of that tragic day and the event that you've had that changed your life?
Gosh, man. Well, there's so much to say there. I think where I'd like to begin is actually not where you're expecting. I never knew my life was worth sharing. And so the event you're talking about, I never talked about with anybody when I was a kid, when I was in middle school, high school, college, started my own business, grew it up here in St. Louis, got married, started a family, just never talked about what I went through. If people would ask, I would give them an answer, sentence of an answer and then move on. But I never viewed it as something that was either beneficial to myself or others. And what changed was a little Girl Scout in St. Louis asked me to speak at her school about 21 years ago. And I took the bait, man. I said yes. And from that one little speech to one little kid with a couple of her little brownies seated behind her, I was invited to speak again. And as you see at that picture, again and again and again. And it just kept growing. And I recognized the story that I was sharing was not at all about me. It wasn't about being burned. It wasn't about amputations. It wasn't about scars. It was about life. It was about faithfulness. It was about togetherness. It was about hope, agency, life. So anyway, that's the broad message that we deliver now in the marketplace. And the answer to your first question is when I was 9, I watched boys in my neighborhood play with fire and gasoline. And I assumed if they could do this, I could as well. And so 9-year-old kid walked into the garage. Mom and dad were out. The house was mine. Bent over the can, try to pour a little bit on top. And before the liquid came out, Phil and Bert, the fumes pulled the flame back into the can, created this massive explosion, split the can in two, blew me on the far side of the garage, and changed my life. I found myself, guys, that morning trapped in flames, covered on fire, not even sure what to do. And so I just ran. And you can ask as many clarifying questions as you'd like, but that one day, that one moment changed the rest of my life and would ultimately trigger me to be burned on 100% of my body, 87% of those burns, third degree, in a hospital room here in St. Louis, Missouri, dying.
Yeah, what a tragic day. And I was a young man at that time. I remember that story when it happened, and I never thought at any point that we'd have a collision point, which we've had a couple times now. And I'm not going to share that point with our audience today. You're going to have to hear that when you come to the leadership conference on May 8th. But there is, our paths have crossed, and I'm not real happy with you, John, about
I
that.
know you've shared a whisper of why, and I get it, man. So I apologize.
Yeah, but you have a powerful story, and you have changed and helped people with their lives in so many ways. And I hear that there's a movie coming out. Tell us about the movie and that experience.
Well, I'm going to back up even more slowly into even that piece because the whole thing is not about the guy you're interviewing. That's why I somehow stay awake each day and do this work each day because none of it is about how great I am. It is about community and grace and the ability we have in our lives and work to do mighty things for those around us. Sometimes the person in the mirror, but in particular for those around us. So the movie. Back in 2016, I wrote a book called On Fire. It came out. I had the opportunity of doing a book tour and in Las Vegas at a conference, a woman approached me and said, John, read the book, deeply moved. Have you ever thought about turning this story into a movie? And like any normal, sane person, I said, absolutely not. Dude, I'm a Midwest kid. Like, why would we even talk about this? And so she said to me, would you mind if I tried? And I'm like, well, gosh, I guess you can try. And so she approached me about 6 months later and said, okay, I've turned this into a screenwriter in Hollywood, and he has agreed to move it forward. Is that okay? And I said, sure. So a gentleman named Gregory Poirier has rated it into a script. Then it was assigned to a director. His name is Sean McNamara. Sean has directed movies like Soul Surfer and Cutting
Yeah.
Edge, Reagan, and just like a bunch, 50 real films. So he was assigned to this film, and you guys, like, I'm a normal, as you know, now we know each other. Like, I'm a normal guy. And so I flew out there to meet him to make sure he was like the right guy for the film. Because I don't want it to be used in the wrong way. And Sean and I met for a coffee and we just started crying together about why we do the work we do. And none of it was about fame or fortune or podcasts or anything else. It's all about keeping people alive and moving forward. That's why he does his work. That's why I do mine. Keep people alive and well and actively moving forward. So when I met this big old teddy bear man, we just fell in love. We had to raise the funds to get the movie shot. We did. It was filmed in St. Louis. It stars William H. Macy. uh, a guy from Shameless and Fargo and a bunch of other films. John Corbett from Sex and the City plays my dad. Stephanie Shostak from Iron Man plays my mom. So these are real actors with real skill, portrayed this film beautifully, shot here in St. Louis, and it's going to be rolling out. You guys are like the first to know this. My mom and dad don't know this yet, so breaking
Wow.
news.
All right. Well, they might be listening, but I doubt it.
There,
Go ahead.
Dad, I'm sure my mom's listening right now. So good morning, Mom. Take that coffee all the way down. I know it's early for you, but October 13th, the film will come out in theaters around the country.
Fantastic. I mean, that's right around the corner. That must have been a great experience to be a part of, like right here in St. Louis. We don't make a lot of movies in St. Louis necessarily, so I can't wait to see it. I definitely will get in line when it's debuted here.
It was the first film shot in Missouri since Up in the Air, I think 13 years earlier.
Oh my gosh.
It had been a while since George Clooney had graced our airport, and it was cool to bring work back to our community, which is awesome. We also shot the film on location where the things occurred. So, like the explosion takes place in the garage where Little John was burned. The conversation I had with my dad on the screen porch, really about life and about Parkinson's disease and struggles, takes place on their screen porch in DePere, Missouri. The
Wow.
place where I met my wife, St. Louis University. The conversations we had, the bars that we visited, man, Humphreys, the Jack Buck's grave site at Jefferson Barracks, like the Busch Stadium 3.
It's
Where
almost a little history story, isn't it?
oh man, it's a life
Yeah.
story, and it's not a story about a kid, it's a story about a community.
That's fantastic. And I got on the picture here, you and Jack Buck. And I'm guessing because I've seen this picture online, I've heard, the influence that he has had. Tell us just a little bit about that relationship. Not everyone had a relationship with Jack Buck, but he definitely has influenced many people's lives.
Undoubtedly. And I'm trying to figure out about how much I want to share because I want to make sure the folks come to St. Louis and join us and sign up early for the registration. Because I'm going to share, I think, more of this story when we're together live. But here's the Cliff Note version. This will kind of whet the appetite. Jack Buck is a radio announcer in St. Louis. He, when I was burned, was already in 6 Hall of Fames and ultimately would be in a few more. He's a known commodity. He's generous in the community. He's involved in the NFL, broadcast baseball games, hockey games, wrestling for a season, and beloved, man, just a beloved guy. And he heard about a little boy named John O'Leary who got burned. And he also heard that I love baseball. And back in the 80s, the way you followed baseball wasn't on podcast. It wasn't on the internet. It was always on just the radio. So I love this man. I'm in a hospital bed. I'm dying. My eyes are swollen shut, so I can't see, but my ears are open. My heart is open, so I can hear. And I hear this man walk into this room. It's my bedroom, 406 at St. John's Mercy. I hear a chair get pulled across the floor. And then I hear the voice of my hero, a guy I'd never met before, guys. His name was Jack Buck, the broadcaster for the St. Louis Cardinals. And he cuts through the darkness with the words, "Kid, wake up. Wake up. You are going to live. You're going to survive. Keep fighting. John O'Leary Day at the ballpark will make it all worthwhile. See you soon."
Oh my goodness.
And he stands up, he walks out of that room, and needless to say, this man never let go of my hand. Not only during that time in hospital, but we had John O'Leary Day at the ballpark, and he mentored and guided and encouraged and loved me when I was a kid, when I went through grade school, on to high school, and even was at the college graduation.
Wow.
So what you're going to hear when you're in St. Louis, because if you haven't registered yet, do it now, is one of the most remarkable love stories ever told. And if it was about how great I am, I would rock myself and everybody else to sleep. But it's just about how great life is and how great service is and how great generosity can be and the invitation in all of our lives to do a little bit more for others.
I can't wait to hear more of that because I haven't heard that story yet. So that's the most I know, and I'm looking forward to that. And John, I can just tell by looking over your shoulder, your family photos there, and anything I've seen online. there's no doubt you are a family-oriented person, full of love. But tell us about your mom.
Mm.
Um, I think mom was a little bit of tough love, as I understand it.
Yeah, I still have a big problem with mom because she was the mean one out of those
Remember,
two.
she's
Man.
listening right now.
I know
Yeah.
but she knows. I mean, she knows how I feel. We love each other, but that doesn't mean we like each other. I have a picture. So mom is over my right shoulder. I have a picture of Martin Luther King on my left, and King wrote this is a great line for all of us. I think he said, "It's hard for me to like the man who is kicking me in the head when I'm on the ground." And then I realized I don't have to like him. I just have to love him. So there are seasons in life when we do not like the people around us, but we are called as leaders. And if you're listening to my voice, that is you, to not necessarily like them, but to choose to love them. And my mother was not always liked by her children, but she was deeply respected and loved. She was a school teacher, is a school teacher. She raised 6 kids. She did not like animals, which I know repulses many of us on this call. And yet, we had 3 dogs growing up, pet turtles, pet rabbits. In other words, this woman who did not always like the things her kids would do would give them permission to do it anyway. So she let us fall forward and was there to pick us up afterwards. And you asked about like my mom's leadership style and her love. I'm going to share one of the stories for when we're live in St. Louis about my mom, but this one won't be there, so I'll share it today. When I came home from the hospital, and this is actually portrayed in the film beautifully. When I came home from the hospital, my mother made my favorite meal. The family was all gathered around the rebuilt house. We say grace before we take the first bite. And then the meal's in front of me. The smoke is gently rising from the chicken. The problem is, guys, for those of you who can see, I don't have fingers. So I know I'm a victim to circumstances. I can't eat. So my sister grabs my fork, picks up the potatoes, starts moving them toward my mouth. And right before they go on in, my mother looks at Amy and says, "Honey, drop the fork. If he's hungry today, he's going to feed himself." And I remember looking first at my sister, who slowly moved the fork away and set it down, and then at my mom. And without saying a word, I'm like, "What are you talking about, Mom? I can't eat. Look at me." And she says to Amy, she goes, "Amy, if he's hungry, he's going to feed himself tonight." In a long story, guys, it's 2.5 hours if I tell you the play by play of the dinner, made far shorter. By the end of that night, I had flipped over 2 plates. The dog had eaten well, flipped over 2 plates, cried several times, been furious at my evil mother, and by the very, very, very end of it, had figured out a way to wedge a fork between these 2 busted down hands, scooped up some potatoes, and brought them toward my mouth. My mother wasn't ultimately, I don't think, teaching me how to eat potatoes and chicken and green beans. She was teaching me agency. Right? She's teaching me love, man. She's teaching me that in spite of the hard stuff, you can still move forward in your life. And that's like an unpopular thing to do for employees sometimes, or children sometimes, or spouses sometimes, or for ourselves sometimes. But it is a liberating gift to be reminded in life that you can do difficult things. And my mother gifted that to me the day I came home from the hospital.
But yeah, I mean, that's a great story, and I think that's applicable today in so many ways. That tough love. Now, I can tell you, whenever I practice tough love at home, I get in trouble. My wife does not accept the tough, and I'm like, look, it's just tough love. Well, that doesn't work. You can't call it out when you're expressing it, but I think sometimes the world could use a little bit more of tough love. And I'm not to suggest kindness isn't important, but that tough love sometimes can make a big difference
Mm.
in the success or failures as we go forward.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that John, what your mom taught you in that moment was resilience, and I think that we all need to be resilient. The world's a difficult place, and no matter how hard, how kind we all try to be, we're all going to run into obstacles and people who are not of that same opinion. And you gotta be resilient. You call it tough love, you call it resilience. It's really the same thing.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's well
it
said.
takes a lot of resilience just to do this show with Bert every week. But nevertheless, John,
Or
tell
that's
us.
when you hit mute and you kick him out of the room, man. I mean, there's a way through technology you can get this man off the show. I don't know how to do it,
Oh,
but I'm sure you
I've
do.
I've been trying for 315 episodes, John, and I haven't figured it out yet.
If he could find a way, he would do it. So
I have that ejector button, so that's one of those. And I'm on AIM's payroll, so.
I'm thinking of a new feature for the program, Nick.
So, John, you kind of hinted to the fact that you didn't want to talk about, your event and where you're at, and eventually you have to go back to school
Right.
and you become, a contributing member of society. But you are living with this. At what point in your life did you learn to accept this and make that transition?
Mm. Well, I'll call you back when it's fully baked, but it has been a journey. I think all of us, every one of us, have stories from our past that help shape who we are today. And many of us wish they had not, if we're honest about it, whether it's that bankruptcy or the divorce or the struggle with our parents or abuse or addiction or mistakes we made or scars we bear outwardly or inwardly. Everybody has a story. Everybody. So for me, my story was on the outside, and as a little kid in a wheelchair with bandages, missing fingers, and for the parts of my body that were not bandaged, they were bright red with scars. So my decision as a child was to strive to be ordinary. And the best way I knew to be ordinary was not to be a burn victim. It was to be a normal little kid. So even in a wheelchair, I try to pretend like nothing was wrong with me. Even when I one day learned how to walk again and played soccer again, I try to like cross my arms so nobody would identify me as being less than they were. So for the majority of my life, guys, I struggled and strived to be just like everybody else, which is why I never told anybody about getting burned, which is why it was so difficult to begin this journey of becoming a speaker, talking about getting burned. And even in that world, it took years, man, before I fully embraced it. I think when there were two moments as a professional speaker that began to really shape me and open me up even more. So one was in a prison. Uh, I went in to speak to these guys, and these are guys, every one of them could take me in a half second, man. Every one of them is so much more physically built than I am. And yet afterwards, these tough, difficult dudes who have their own past and checkered mistakes came up to me and just shared their hearts. And I began to realize in this prison in Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, that
That's a big one.
it
Yeah.
was a federal prison, man,
Yeah.
scary place to go into. I felt so unworthy. And yet the way they loved me afterwards, I recognized somehow in being honest with yourself and them, you become worthy. Like you are enough and recognizing you don't have to be more than you already are. So that was a big moment. And then there's a group called Focus Marines. It's based here in St. Louis. They serve wounded veterans from around the country. There was a day where I got off a flight too late and couldn't go home and change and put on like a nicer clothes. So I had short sleeves on, which means I have scars from my biceps all the way down to my amputated fingers. And I was so worried about how these guys would view me in front of them because I wasn't able to hide behind the sport coat and the jacket and long sleeves. And that night, man, like rather than even needing words to break through the veil that separates us, walking on the stage with these guys, this is a group we speak to quarterly for now 15 years. Uh, there was this commonality and this vulnerability that was on display from the word go. And I began to recognize both while speaking, with their sharing during, and then the hugs afterwards, that I don't need to be anything more than I already am. Whether it's tone and temperament, speaking, wealth, status, family, all these things that we sometimes collect around us to pretend like we're more. Um, just being who you are is enough. And so these big, tough, wounded veterans, as they approached me afterwards and shared their stories, I realized that part of what allowed them and liberated them to share was the vulnerability of sharing my own, sometimes in words and other times just by being myself. And so you asked the question, man, when did you realize that like you're enough? And I jokingly said, I'll let you know, but like that's the story, man. I'm still figuring it out. I've spoken 2,700 times. been on hundreds of podcasts, reading a couple books. They're doing the movie. But every day I gotta go look in the mirror. I gotta brush my teeth, say my prayers, and pray for the courage to be who God has designed me to be today. And if we can do that, if we can surrender to that will, then maybe today's the day.
Yeah. I mean, that's an amazing leadership story right there. I don't think we have to say any more, Nick. Let's just take that and publish that right out to the world. As you know, we talk with leaders. Bert and I work with tons of leaders in our community, and that if people can harness that, and I would say myself included, many times over, it's the practice of what do I want to be? Who am I? How do I display more about who I want to be as part of who I am, if that makes any sense at all. It's a very tough thing to do every single day. And I'm not trying to overcome anything other than my own, few shortcomings here. And they're big shortcomings, but they're definitely shortcomings. But John, that is a great message. I am looking so forward to having you on our program, or part of our program on May 8th at the AIM Leadership Conference. I know there's only like 150 seats left. It's selling out very quickly. If you haven't already done so, you can go online at the AIM website and check that out and get enrolled. Most of the seats go 10 at a time when they buy tables. And that's a great opportunity to bring a leadership team together, hear an amazing story through a local hero, and let us be able to, help make our community a better place. That's what we're trying to do. John, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate that. Bert, if you would stick around, I got a few things for you. Good luck on your next podcast, and we'll see you on May 8th, John. Thank you very much.
Phil,
Thank you,
thank
John.
you. Bert, thank you, my friend.
Bye-bye. All right, Bert. Wow, what a story, huh?
Amazing, amazing. Hey, I'm really looking forward to the program May 8th. We've got our Ogletree Table of 10. We're a platinum sponsor, and always appreciate the partnership with AIM.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. Have you seen or been a part of any John's programs in the past?
I have not. My wife has been, and she was very excited to listen to the program this morning. And I'm trying to figure out a way to sneak her back into the May 8th program. You and I may have to talk.
Yeah, well, we might know somebody. Let me
All
know,
right.
and we'll talk with our guy Tim and see if he can't make that happen. But anyway, Bert, let's just tee up tomorrow's program. A lot of people listening, and tomorrow's program, I think, is a unique program in a way that we're going to have two attorneys that have different perspectives on this, but also are trying to represent the law. And that's you and your friend Luther from Nashville, Tennessee, who's been a part of the program. And then we're going to have Fred Faulkner, who is really a culture expert and one of the best guys that I've worked with when it really comes to understanding human nature and developing a culture in a workplace. He is fantastic. I got the easy part, right? I'm just going to ask some questions. You guys are going to do all the talking, but we're going to talk a little bit about what you should do, what's right and wrong today as it relates to diversity and EEOC, and how we move forward in a legal way. And at the same time, we want to talk a little bit about, well, diversity is important in the workplace. We've been talking about it for almost 60 years, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Well, Civil Rights Act of
Since EEOC,
1964. Yeah, Civil
64,
Rights Act
yeah.
goes back to 1964. So, and certainly, race in the workplace was a topic well before that, which led to the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Right. So we're talking decades.
And so for me, what's a little bit interesting in this is that, I mean, for most of us, for you and me, being the young guys that we are, we haven't, I mean, I don't know the workplace any different than that, right? I know the workplace as I've experienced it. And I think some people are expecting, well, this is a major shift, and the workplace is going to be different now. And that's the piece that I think is really quite interesting. And when I say that, and this is just a little bit of teaser, one of the questions tomorrow is that we often will see in a job ad And I know, always writing job. We are EEOC, equal employment. We do not discriminate for. Like, this is a question. I don't want you to answer it now, but like, should that still be in the job ad? Right? Is that legal today to put in the job ad in the same context that we've used it over the years? And that answer might be yes or no, but that's going to be one I'm going to ask. So I'm going to give you time to research that and have an opinion on it for tomorrow.
I can already tell you I have an opinion on it, and it won't be, it depends.
Oh, that's great. I appreciate that. Anyway, so if you are listening, you want to participate tomorrow, we'd love to have you on that program. You can join by going to the AIM website. Again, that program's name, Nick will have to help me. I got it here in my notes.
That is the future of DEI, a paradigm shift. So it's a special edition live webinar from the people who brought you This Week at Work.
Yeah. And we appreciate Feature Group helping us produce that. They always do a good job. Bert, I look forward to having you and Luther and Fred on the program tomorrow. And until then, we will be back here tomorrow at 8:30 Central Time. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you once again for tuning in to This Week at Work. If you enjoy the show, please like it, share it, and make sure it's on your calendar. If you're an on-demand viewer, don't forget you can be part of the show by watching live at 7:30 a.m. Central every Thursday morning, when you can get your burning questions answered by using the question mark icon to the right of the player. In fact, you can ask a question now. Head over to aimea.org. Under Member Resources, you'll find This Week at Work. Click Listen Live to register for our next episode and submit a question. Or follow or subscribe wherever you get your news and entertainment. We'll see you next week when we discuss what's happening this week at work.